when I started 40K, started in like late 7th edition, which is kind of like this running joke about my own insecurity because every other person who's been into the 40K community, they're always like, yeah, I started playing in like 3rd or 5th. I'm like, damn, I started when the game started to get kind of bad.
Yeah, I've been going since second edition, so
Yeah, that's usually the story, I guess. Yeah, I've been trying to play other like editions of it. I ordered the Rogue Trader book,
oh,
but
that's a whole different thing. That's a role-playing game more than a miniature game, sort of,
oh
sort
yeah,
of.
trust me. I know the history behind it. Long funny story. I remember like picking up the Tau and being like, yeah, I want to play Kroot, and then I found out that Kroot just die by the thousands. And they were technically my first army, and I never got into like playing them. Sold them off because I was like, man, Tau blow, and I have too many Tau suits, and it's corrupting my Kroot influence. And the Kroot were a fun gesture, but I can't play them because there's no fun to be had there because there's not enough support. So they announced Kroot coming out now, and I'm like, oh my god, they're coming home! As so I got like super excited. I'm picking up Kroot tomorrow. It's too much. Because like I'm all for playing on the tabletop with what you think is cool, but if there's not enough support for you to play them as like a functioning army, then it's just not, it's going to be you playing an uphill battle against yourself.
Wow, that's kind of the topic of today. On the tabletop, Warhammer 40,000 in the 90s and early 2000s wasn't competitive, and arguably it isn't suited to be competitive at all, considering the vast number of units and options and how it is an asymmetrical game. Unlike chess, you don't start with the same pieces that make the same moves in the same way on each side. You have a unit roster, and each unit is unique in some way, so meeting an opponent with exactly the same army is incredibly unlikely. But what we're seeing and what new players are seeing online, not just from the more involved side of the community, but also from Games Workshop itself, is a focus on the competitive playstyle. So players are expecting 40k to be competitive and to have matches they see in tournament live streams of hyper meta combos just being standard. Then they start trying to play games like that against their mate Kevin. Kevin has 750 points of Space Marines that came in Leviathan plus a few bits he was given second hand. Kevin cannot run a competitive list. Some of the characters don't have units, but you and Kevin can have fun with 40k. But if you expect 40k to be that competitive game it seems like it is online, Kevin will feel that the rules are busted and the points seem off. For his list they will be, because a Biologus alone is not worth 55 points. And you, as that new player, will be confused that they can't ever have that nail-biting edge-of-your-seat game that's down to the wire that you see others having online. Everyone will have a bad 40k experience if competitive 40k is seen as the baseline. So that's what we're talking about today. From now on, it's almost all going to be audio, so if you want to relax and paint or go for a walk while listening to us, that works great. When there is something visual on screen, it will be to better illustrate what we are talking about, and the customary whoosh noise will tell you that something is there on screen. So we're going to be talking about how competitive 40k is the norm, how Games Workshop seems to be catering to competitive people more than others, the balancing issues, and what we do with Legends units. We play with them. Hi, I'm Christian von Carmian, and with me today is Arthur Bones. Say hi, Arthur.
We were having such a great conversation, and then you had to break out the hi bit.
I know.
Now I hate you.
It's not stealing, it's creative borrowing.
It's actually a literal curse that's gonna haunt me to the day I die.
Oh yeah, I mean, I saw the collab. The number of people that were like, hi.
Four people. That is 1/10.
10%.
That is 10%. No shade against them, but it was. I know it's part of like the brand and whatever, but like a lot of people don't understand where that came from.
Does it have vast lore?
No, it doesn't. It's literally, I'm just kind of dumb. That's literally the story. I was like, oh, hey, I gotta do a Warhammer script. I don't know how to start this, so I have this like thing where I'm like, I hit record, I have a 30-second countdown, and whatever comes out of my mouth is how I start this script.
Okay.
So in my head, I was just like, hi. Like, it was just an awkward blurt that I do, and that's usually how I introduce myself often, because I don't know, I'm terrible at introductions. I usually just cut out the small talk and go immediately into it. But also, hi everybody, I'm Arthur Bones, owner of the Bone Zone 40k YouTube channel, and I'm here to discuss things and give my dog water opinions.
So today we are talking about competitive 40k, and after a very brief chat, we have both concluded that neither of us are very competitive players, which can be confusing when so many of my videos have been about the meta of 40k, the way things are going in 40k, how to win with 40k. Well, maybe they're just the videos that do the best. Most of them are like, here's this terrible unit, let's have fun with it. Hence, the Gene Stealer cult. Magos.
For me, my opinions on like competitive 40k is I look at it and I like to think that I have a similar opinion to the concept of. Are you familiar with the term outsider art?
All I can think of is deviant art now.
No, so outsider art is one of my favorite like philosophical concepts where communities that have never interacted with the greater media of the world still produce art, and this art is not influenced by any of the other ones. So right now, like if you go on any major art producing website, you'll see the inspirations of anime, Japanese culture, Western culture. You see all of those, but outsider art is like the specific idea of art in a vacuum can still exist no matter what because humans naturally tend towards it. That's how I view my perspective on like competitive 40k, where I don't watch anything involving competitive games. I don't pay attention to like tournaments or tournament lists. I prefer to organically and naturally build my lists to suit my needs and how I enjoy playing against the people that I play with. So, good example right now. Every Wednesday, I go out with a friend and we go to my local game store. Wonderful place. Everybody there is nice. We set up a game and we just play back and forth. And I do not watch anything involving Age of Sigmar because it's Age of Sigmar, but we're going to be switching over to 40k because I'm getting the Kroot box tomorrow. The best way to exemplify what I'm talking about is I'm playing Iron Jaws orcs, and I love Iron Jaws orcs. I think they are stupid.
Big chunky boys? Yep.
Oh yeah, they beat their head against things, and that's all they do. He's playing Sylvaneth, and they are stupid. I hate trees now.
They're tricksy, they generate woods, they teleport.
Yeah, the teleport is annoying as sin.
There we go, Games Workshop. Just ban teleporting for all armies. You don't need to worry about the Catan going all over the place, the new Necron stuff. Forget it. No more trees coming out of other trees.
I'm a fan of it. I like tricks. I like it when like
Gene Stealer cult. All the deep strike.
I like when I'm looking at the board and like he like threw a tree lord at me. No, not a tree lord. It was a unit of spite revenants and threw them directly at me. A unit of 10, immediately right in the center of my deployment zone. And I was like, oh, that's we fighting. Like I was like getting ready for it. And he charged one of my guys, and I was like, wait a second, I can charge him in his charge phase because I'm playing Iron Jaws. So I throw 2 orc units at him because I can issue the command with a mega boss. He can do it too. 2 guys went in, and then he attacked once and then just like dipped because they couldn't teleport out. And that was like one of the most frustrating things ever. But he started to lean into that mechanic, and I started to lean into the like I can charge and move outside of my charge and move phases. These games have been going on for well over 3 months. Neither of us have been watching any competitive reports, any how to play the faction, whatevers. We're doing that, and that's kind of how my opinions begin to form, because me and him saw the Meta Watch get released and noticed that Sylvaneth and Iron Jaws are currently the most losingest armies in the game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's like something like below 50% win rates for both of them.
I stopped playing with the vampire counts, Soulblight Gravelords, at the start of 3rd edition. They were apparently amazing in the meta as long as you ran 100 zombies. I have like 25, 30 zombies, so I was never getting anywhere near the meta, and I stopped caring about Age of Sigmar so much, generally because of main rules changes.
I don't know if there's anything you want to add to my little outsider art thing there.
A weird thing happened where Yachi Kosho, who used to do Zero Punctuation, he did a short video where he described this game that he just came up with. It seemed totally different to anything else, where you had to use your keyboard to type attacks to destroy enemies. And then there was like 2 comments that were like, the game you're describing is already existing. It's called Epistory Typing Chronicles. You type the name of enemies and that does damage to them. It seemed so unique, but it's there.
I do like that idea, though. That, like, you can come up with an idea that's already existed, because the game systems themselves naturally have a slant. Like, if 40k Leagues of Votan, which
As an example.
is a good example, yeah. It's like, you don't have many options, and the systems of the game lean towards you having at least 2 to 3 calls on the board for them to actually work, and you learn that naturally through, like, playing the game.
Yes, and if you want to be fast, you need the bikers and you need the transports. Otherwise,
Exactly.
you're not going to win the game because you're having to walk slowly with a bunch of Hearthkin.
Or you could just get 3 units of 10 Hearthguard, attach a call to each, and then just lethal hit 10d6 every single person you see. I love having abilities that make it so that my opponent can't do literally anything in response except bleed and die. That's fun.
Yeah, it's one of the three options you know exists for Leagues of Votan.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of what they did to Leagues of Votan, but we'll get there. The last time that like I gave like competitive play a big hurrah, I kind of got dicked over a little bit. I was talking to a friend of mine and I was like, "Hey, I want to learn how to play competitive 40K because I want to actually attend a local tournament." Because I, in like 8th and 9th edition, I used to be like a shark. I used to actually like be on point with like competitive play, and I'd regularly win tournaments in my local area with Death Guard because I was one of those players. You know the ones, the Nurgle Demon Soup, where I'd have Epidemius at the back of the board, and about 60 poxwalkers, or not poxwalkers, plague bearers around him, and then tanks because they count as demon engines and they
Ah,
count as
yes.
Nurgle demons.
So they get
Yeah,
the demon keyword.
yeah, exactly. I was abusing the living hell out of that.
We
It's
have
it's
different
because
local metas. It's totally different because I've never played against that, but I know it existed somewhere. Apparently, it
yeah,
was in Canada.
yeah, yeah, Eastern Canada in one specific shop. It's pretty crazy. Side note, Epidemius, the worst looking model in the 40K
Oh,
shop.
yes.
It's bad. It's really bad. My last hurrah for 8th edition going into ninth was I was just trying to be as mean as possible, and I came second place in a tournament by bringing 4 great unclean ones. And then I decided in ninth edition that I was going to try other games, so I started to play like, oh god, what didn't I start to play? I played like Age of Sigmar. I played
Flames of War?
unfortunately not, but I did dip my toes into Conquest, Last Word of Kings, because that game is awesome. Um, don't know if it's popular in your area.
Don't. Oh, hang on. Is this Last Argument of Kings?
Last Argument of Kings. Sorry, it's been a minute.
There we go. So it's knights and stuff. Yes. Yes.
At nights, you'd think until you see that one of the factions is what if Rome kept going, but they became necromancy, zombie, whatevers with eldritch demons running them. And then you have like dwarves with dragons, orcs with dinosaurs. And the concepts with them are actually pretty fresh, and I really like them. And the sculpts are absolutely beautiful. Miniatures are actually a scale larger than Games Workshop miniatures because GW is switching from like 28 millimeter to like, oh god, 32, right? These are like 40 mil, like across the board. They're
Okay.
huge and they look really nice. But I think honestly, they are one of the only miniature games that have miniature quality and concepts that can compete with Games Workshop. Because sculpt wise, there's a lot of miniatures that can compete with Games Workshops. Like Creature Caster, they make some of the best models out there, but I find their concepts are very limited. So, say they have a queen or a king model, the king is obviously going to be a representation of the concept that they're doing. So, like King of Ruin is just basically a Nurgle demon. I started to play a lot of games in ninth, and I just stopped playing ninth edition competitively. But towards the end of ninth, um, Leagues of Votan came out, and as anybody would
Yeah.
know who knows me, I didn't even care if they were good. I wanted them because I love dwarves. Dwarves have always been like one of my favorite fantasy races, so I got into that and got the box, started painting them, made my own faction, brass gold on black and sometimes red. It's cute. I'm very much a big fan of it, and I was like, okay, I got a 2,000 point list in my head. I'm like, okay, I like how these guys play. Apparently, they're really good, and this is the first time I've accidentally a competitively viable like army.
Well, for the scale of the range of Leagues of Votan, there was no real option.
Yeah, right.
That's part of the
I
problem.
had
The
I
size of
had
the
all of
Leagues of
them all.
Votan and like the World Eaters, either you have a competitive army because the faction is competitive, or you don't because the faction isn't competitive.
Yeah, it's why if Games Workshop only releases the new Hernkin Jaegers, and that's the only new model they release for
Leagues of Votan.
uh, yeah, thank you, Leagues of Votan. I am going to start throwing plates. Because we are missing so many fundamentals to like an army. We
Like the
have no
jump
like,
pack models that were in a kill team, they're not separate yet. Or
yeah, we have
existing.
one. And that's the best part because I love that kill team. I got it the second they had it out. But I'm like, okay, cool. So I can make a 10-man unit of like all the new stuff. We got like Fisty Magooner Steady, the guy with like the brass shock knuckles. Love that guy. We got like the rotary cannon, which cool, shoots a lot. I like shooting a lot. And then we got guy on jump pack, whom I can't put in the unit because there's nothing to model that as.
Yeah,
Um,
they don't have
but
their own special kill team rules the way that, say, the Kroot Farstalkers are their own kill team with special rules.
yeah, they just count as a Hearthkin unit, and which is cool. I like when you can incorporate stuff like that, but it's annoying. But yeah, so I got a 2,000 point list of Leagues of Votan, and I was going to a local game, and I was going to play against my friend. And I was like, "Hey, could you run me through how to play Ninth Edition?" Because this is like mid to late Ninth Edition, and I had barely played maybe 3 games of Ninth, and I was like, "Okay, I don't know how to use the cards. I don't know how to do this. So just run me through it. You got everything. Cool." We showed up, and last minute he swapped me with the best Warhammer player on my island. He consistently goes to regionals and wins.
So this is,
Okay.
you think you're playing me, but then the boss music starts.
Yeah, quite literally. Guy walked in, and in my head, I'm like, okay, he's really, really good. I'm playing an army that's currently got a 70% win rate. That might balance it out because I'm kind of an idiot. I don't play competitively.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, no. Oh God, no. It got so bad because I placed one miniature and then he immediately was like, okay, so you're going to be placing that one there, that one there, that one there, that one there. And he was like 9 out of 10 correct. And I was like, what? What? He's like, yeah, because that's the only logical decision you could make in this position. I'm like,
What if logic never came into it?
I was like, okay, cool. So I played and I started making decisions that he would react to physically. Because again, yeah,
So it's things like, oh, I didn't expect that. Oh, uh-huh, naturally.
no, it was more like why would you do that?
Ah.
Like, yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. So it was a very souring experience because especially afterwards, he was playing post Ninth Edition Codex Guard, and I lost half of my army in turn 1 shooting from tanks alone, and I'm just sitting there with like 900 points of squats left, going, huh? What now? And he's like, well, I mean, you can concede. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. So I did. And he genuinely looked at me and he said, is this like one of your first times playing 40K? And I'm like, oh, oh, that hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That hurt a lot. But yeah, so this is a long and roundabout way of describing that this is the reason why I fell out of love with competitive play, because when you have that kind of crushing defeat when you're just trying to learn how to play the game, it can destroy the game for you.
Yeah, I've sort of had a similar experience where I'm usually the person that people are like, oh, go talk to Christian. He'll be the one that shows you like a good time for your first game. So I didn't know that this had been prepped for me. So a guy turned up with Necrons and he was like, okay, he had his little app. He clicked all the buttons, tournament play, intense game, full victory points, full things. It's like, okay, so we're doing it like that. Great. Maybe I just haven't seen you at the club before. And then he got so many rules wrong. And I was like, I think this guy is cheating. But it turns out he just didn't know what he was doing and assumed that everything had to be hyper competitive the first time you go in. An awkward experience rather than like a fun one.
Yeah, I should note that I'm not trying to poo-poo on anybody who enjoys competitive play
No,
because,
no, it's just, I'm the same. I like that they're separate and they should be separate and people are not aware how separate they can be.
yeah, I'm a firm believer that like it's a game. There is no such thing as truly a correct way of playing the game. If you are hyper competitive and you enjoy actually playing that way, then that's the correct way to play. If you are like me, and you run nothing but like Ma Gruntas and Ard Boys, and you have no idea what you're doing, but you're having a great time, That's also equally valid. There's no correct way to play the game, and that's kind of what draws me to these kinds of games. That being said, you should not try and force your style of play on other people. If one other person tells me, "Hey, is this your first time playing?" I'm probably gonna punch a hole in some drywall. I think this is a good way to segue into it. That I think that the competitive slant for 40K is unironically ruining 40K. I think it is choking the absolute life out of it pretty harshly, and it makes a lot of sense.
It's
Go
more
ahead.
recent for sure, because I've
Definitely.
got like quotes essentially from the start, like early times of 40k. So it's things like Jervis Johnson saying, "Writing rules is fun. Everyone should write their own rules." Tuamus saying, "Oh, I don't get upset when people decide to like make their own rules. It's upsetting when people don't do that." Rick Priestley was saying, "I hate that when people think that there's some like mighty deity of rules writing that decides that this is what's okay to play and not play." And then, yeah, they can't just rubber stamp everything to say this is okay, this is not. And Nigel Stillman, I don't know if you know the Stillman philosophy. You can customize and do whatever you want in your game. And what he used to do was say, right, this is my army. I will get 2,000 points of this army, and that will be the army that I play. Same roster every time. Yeah, people got used to it, but he had fun playing the army that he liked. And then whenever he won, it was like, oh, this is super amazing. You know, you are actually a good player. Anyone can pull a list off the internet.
Yeah, right. There's a philosophy that's kind of preached in my local area by like he is one of the most respected and loved members of the community. He's the guy that got me into the game. So, all of you who dislike me being around, blame him. Uh, he's the guy that taught me how to play the game at a convention once, and he has this idea that like once you start playing 40K or any like war game, get a 1,000 to 1,500 point list and then play that for at least 20 games before you buy anything else. Just so that you can find out what you like, find out what you don't like, and then find the holes in your thing.
Yeah, you'd be like, oh, I have no anti-tank. I should probably get some of that.
Yeah, or hey, maybe I just like having more Kroot, which
Yeah, yeah.
was not an option for me, but I ended up with at least 60 Kroot by the end of that. But regardless, I think it is important to find what you like as opposed to what wins. Because of people focusing on what wins, it leads to the issue that I have with 10th edition. And I could be completely wrong.
You're expressing opinions on the internet. They are both right and wrong.
So this is coming with the caveat that I assume that GW is paying attention to the vocal minority of the people who show up at tournaments, which makes a lot of sense because those are the people that you can see. You can see that they are there, and they
Yes,
probably have to fill out surveys to be like, "Hey, if you could improve the game somehow, how would it
that
be?"
is one of the
And
things I have. Games Workshop does, like, every now and then these big surveys, and sometimes, like, the first question is, do you consider yourself to be a casual, narrative, or competitive player? But then they see how many responses they've got. Okay, that's great. Majority of people, I think, are casual, but the majority of people who fill out a survey are going to be the competitive ones that keep up with it, that saw that a survey existed, and, you know, casual players are not going to care to respond. Competitive players will, so Games Workshop naturally skews towards competitive things just off the data they have.
makes complete sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the data skew is kind of tearing the game apart because I think that I think on one end the competitive side of things is again it's like my biggest issue because when you see the changes that have happened to 10th edition and the reason why I stopped playing, I genuinely could not stand playing that game. And I am going to be playing again soon because Kroot are coming out and Kroot are being made with 10th edition in mind, which makes a lot of sense. And they're going to be a lot more balanced and a lot more.
Get your invulnerable saves on everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But also, again, they just get the same kind of bleed that every single faction in 40K has. But the big problem with 40K is the same thing that like people who don't know anything about the game and people who play only competitively, they say relatively the same thing. And what do they want? They want faster games because they don't want to spend too much time at a table. They want easier to understand rules. Or for the competitive side of things, they have to go through numerous rule books to find what they need to.
Have it pre-prepped. Go to a tournament organizer. Yeah. It
Yeah,
also helps
right.
the casual people if the rules are easy to understand. But then in
Yeah,
tournament levels, they're also like, oh, I want more complexity. So a lot of tournament
Yeah.
players are like, I like the end of ninth edition where there was 100 special rules per unit.
Oh yeah, that's my sauce.
Yeah.
But because of that, it leads to GW thinking, oh, we need to make the game quicker. We need to make the rules easier to understand for new players, and because of that, they bleed together. Like making the rules easier to understand and easier to execute means that the competitive play goes quicker and casual players can get into easier, which on paper sounds good.
It
But
does sound good.
okay, okay, this is a shooting army that has lethal hits on shooting attacks if you attach a character model to this unit. What was I describing? What unit? You probably thought of 5 from 5 different factions, because every faction has more or less incredibly similar rules.
Yep.
Like, good example, Kroot are coming out, and I love them, but their detachment rule is quite literally the same thing as the Leagues of Votan detachment rule, just kind of worse. Like,
Yeah, if they're below starting strength and if they're below half strength. Yeah, so that's a lot like the Crusher Stampede in Tyranids and the Battle Sisters Hallowed Martyrs detachment, however in reverse. Oh, also, the Death Watch have some kill teams. One of them gets a bonus if they're attacking an enemy that's above half strength, one gets a bonus if they're attacking an enemy below half strength.
oh yeah, no, so that's the big problem, is that all of the rules are starting to bleed together because they just want it to be like, oh, you get a +2 and or a +1 to one stat and a +1 to another, and that's supposed to be like the big thing. But in the end, it ends with all the armies kind of playing the same, except for Death Guard. Death Guard just suck and are not fun and are terrible right now, and I
They're
hate
not as
them.
tough as they used to be.
They're not tough at all. They're literally just as strong as 2 wound orcs now. What the hell?
I suppose profile is quite a big thing in how tough a unit is. Toughness 5 compared to toughness 6 compared to toughness 4. They have been expanding the numbers at least.
I'm not a big fan of it. I really don't like that they made the Death Guard into an offensive focused army.
Yeah, that doesn't suit
Um,
them.
and not in the slightest. I think the idea of giving them lethal hits on everything, cool, makes sense, but not even a damage reduction, not a feel no pain, not nothing. Not even an additional wound on most of them.
Hmm,
It's
yeah.
very weird that they did that, because from a competitive standpoint, I could kind of see where that came from. Okay, this is a troop choice. Troop choice should have 3 rules or 3 benefits. So, 1 to toughness, they have lethal hits on their weapons, and they have that one written ability on there that I don't remember because I don't play Death Guard anymore. Because oh, I do, I have them. I'm just waiting for them to not be bad. And because of that, it felt like they just ran out of the ability to add new things onto them because they thought it would clutter the stat sheet, when they left out the one thing that made Death Guard kind of a very unique faction. Because for the longest time, before Leagues of Votan came out, they were the only strictly defensive faction in the game that was supposed to be played defensive. Now, you
And
can play them
slow.
other ways. Yeah,
Definitely slow.
yeah, I mean, there is an argument to be made about Custodes, because Custodes, but Custodes can be played any way you want because they're good at everything.
Yeah, they are the super
Um,
tough ones. I suppose Death Guard are no longer like Custodes? See, this is where I disagree. I like the idea that they've made things very much the same, which means it's easy to pick up different factions. It means someone can be against me. They put Necrons on the table. I'm like, oh yeah, this does this and this and this, and I know all those keywords. I think that's so much
mhm,
better
mhm.
than 8th and 9th edition, where it was like 100 unique keywords and special rules and things.
I think that's an interesting point to make, because I do see that it makes it easier for people to pick up individual models, but and I've been seeing that opinion a lot, because I tend to be pretty active in my own community, which is weird apparently.
So all of
And
your community is wrong.
well, I was going to say a lot of them agree with you.
Oh, good, good. All of your community is right.
Congratulations, you played yourself. So I find a lot of people disagree with me, and a lot of people agree with me, and that's cool. I like the smoke. I like having like arguments with people about these kinds of things because I like debating and learning other people's opinions. Because I'm very much of the strong standpoint that different opinions doesn't mean there's a definitive right or wrong, especially when it comes to games like this. Because like
hmm
what you enjoy, and what I enjoy are very different. But
Yeah. If you enjoy a
I,
casual game where it never goes above 800 points, that's great. If you like
oh yeah.
tournament games where it's always 2000 points and your opponent loves that as well, perfect. Just
Exactly.
don't mix the two players.
So, with the homogenization of factions. I find my complaint is obviously flavored from the fact that I am a lore guy, and I will always be a lore guy. I remember, like, the first time I started reading lore books, it got me actually interested in a faction. It's what got me into like collecting Space Marines, and
Ah,
uh,
so they need their uniqueness to match the law. That's why you have that
it's
faction.
yeah, it's why I quite enjoy the flavor aspect of it. So the individual aspects of individual factions makes it more interesting as a whole, because it means that I don't know what you're doing, you don't know what I'm doing, but we're gonna have a good time. Because I'm a firm believer that you don't need to know what your opponent is doing. Your opponent needs to know. And I've been playing for long enough to be like, that seems strong. Can we look at that? Like, if someone does a rule that I'm like, that doesn't seem right, because in my head I have an understanding of what could work,
Yeah.
even in like late stage ninth edition. If someone was like, oh yeah, this is a modified Imperial Guard tank that has a bright lance that they stole from an Eldar, I'm like, that doesn't sound right. So I'd ask to see their rule, but like generally speaking, if someone wants to win so much that they lie about the stat lines of their whatevers, I honestly don't care. Because winning is never like a big thing for me. But to go back a couple points, both Fluff, in my opinion, is a big reason for the tabletop to have the rules that it does. Now I get it. I'm not so deluded that I think that the Fluff supersedes the tabletop, because it's the other way
We
around.
don't want movie Marines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
Space Marines are
it's
like the baseline, technically, and
yeah,
then there's some factions weaker, some factions stronger in terms of like the base stats.
yeah, that's exactly how it's supposed to be. I know that the books are there to give background to the miniatures, not the other way around. Sometimes they do that with like the Uriel Ventress miniature, the Valerian.
Yeah, I mean, if you were, I know you weren't around then, but for like second and third editions, the really early stuff, they would play games and that would become official law because it was in White Dwarf and everyone saw it and everyone read it. And then that's where you get things
Yeah.
like the Massacre at Sanctuary 101, the whole thing of, oh yeah, the first tyrannic war with High Fleet Behemoth and fighting all of the First Company because the game they were playing was on an ice world. They were like, yep, this is the Polar North, we've decided, and they're fighting mostly Terminators. So it's the First Company dying against the Tyranids.
Oh yeah. I love those kinds of narrative campaigns, though I love when GW cheats on them and doesn't bring it up.
Ah.
Ah, that was shots, man. Oh man, who's the man? I shouldn't have said that one. Man, that was funny though. That Tyranid win, that was funny. Uh,
Oh, that's the Battle for Ugram.
yeah,
Is
that's
that
the
one?
one. That's that one.
Oh, I
I
was thinking
honestly,
even further back because they had in 2003 the Eye of Terror campaign. Like, oh, let's see who wins. And it was like, well, it didn't go great for the Forces of Chaos, and Abaddon is stuck alone on the planet, not having a fun time. They were like, retcon button, boop, let's go instead. And like, oh no, he blew up the planet, he never went down to the planet, it's fine. They've done worse
yeah.
in Warhammer Fantasy, where they had this whole campaign, and like, yep, Grimgor Ironhide kicks Archon in the head, laughs at him, and then his army entirely leaves. They retcon that to be like he punches him, and then Archon kills him, and then Archon destroys the world.
Yeah. God bless fantasy. So yeah, the first books that I got into got me into playing 40K because I like the idea of two different armies with two different flavors competing with each other. So I like the idea of armies that have absolutely radically different rules. Just beating the living shit out of each other. I don't even care if it's like two factions of orcs. I just wish that like I know I'm gonna get shot for this, but like I didn't really care that much that there were so many rules and so many different books. I just like the fact that there's like flavor to make you different.
Ah, yeah. So you can make your own clan, the rules to make your own Gene Stealer cult, and you just pick the ones you
More
want.
so more so that like, hey, if you're playing Goths, I want them to feel almost completely differently from me playing Blood Axes. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
there to be themes that make them super different. I want like a boatload of new rules, and unfortunately, I don't agree with the books, but also, hey guys, so there's this funky pirate website that you can go to.
Yar har.
Yeah, right. But regardless, I do think that like there is this like gray washing is the term that I use for
Yeah.
all the facts tend to play very similarly, and because they play very similarly, I don't get that little itch scratch at the back of my head where I feel like I'm playing against a different faction. It just feels like I'm punching a punching bag, and they're punching a punching bag as well. There's not
Hmm.
much resistance, and it's all just
Then
the same.
again, I play Genestealer Cult, which does play rather differently to anyone else. And it's so
Mhm.
different. I just redid a thumbnail for a video that I've done, like why Genestealer Cult are fun because they're so different to anything else. So if you're thinking like the special rules to make your army and thing unique, how do you feel about detachments?
Detachments, I think, work. I think that Games Workshop is going to hopefully correct after feedback because I'm noticing that I'm not alone in my opinion that a lot of people say the armies feel very samey. And that's not even just like Space Marines. I know a lot of people say that a lot of the factions are just absolutely weirdly similar. So because of that, I hope Games Workshop is going to overly correct a little bit and starts making weird things. This is going to go to my conspiracy theory in a second that I mentioned really far back pre-recording here. I think it's great. I think detachments are cool. I like the Kroot only detachments. I like the
It's not
stratagems that are
Kroot only, it's just Kroot focused. If you
I,
want to bring a rail cannon, you can.
I am not. I am bringing nothing but Kroot, and no one can stop me. I don't care if it's bad. I don't care if I have nothing that's higher than toughness 6. I don't care if I have nothing that's higher than strength like
You will have no armor
5.
penetration apart from one stratagem.
That's fine. I got the lone hunter. He can throw a missile with a melt-a-bomb at the end of it. It's great.
Yes. Hmm.
um, one guy on a gecko on a
Interesting
mission.
model, yes. It's me and me chameleon, and we're throwing sticks.
Hey, I'm
Do you
going to
not.
be throwing sticks and rocks at tanks, and if it works, then it's going to be really cool. If it doesn't, hey, then that's expected.
Now
It's
you
fine.
could be describing the Beast Snagger boys.
Yeah, but they at least get anti-vehicle on goddamn near everything. Yeah, I think detachments are really good as an idea. I hope that instead of doing the power creep, they just get weird creep. Like,
Yeah,
they just start adding weirder rules.
I'd like that.
I like the idea that the entirety of the Kroot, they're different from Imperial Guard, but they have like the same kind of backbone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's lots of infantry with some bigger support.
Like the in between of Imperial Guard and Tyranids, where you have like a lot of chaff, a lot of weird guys, but they still have the gimmick of they're hyper mobile because like every single carnivore has Scout 6. The Farstriders Riders have
Scout 7.
Scout 7. Damn. The Farstriders Riders have Infiltrate.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure even the Krutox Rampagers have like 7 to 9 inch movements. Regular Krutox, he's gonna just chill at the backfield. But back to the thing. I think rules drift is a very important aspect to the game, and I think that's them realizing that people. I've noticed a lot of people are actually stopping play, and again, it might just be my own personal biases, but I've noticed a lot of people are stopping playing 40k in exchange for other games. People can stop playing AOS because it's bad, and GW will not care. People can stop playing Necromunda, GW will not care. Old World, no one cares.
Well, yes, there is that. Then again, my entire club, apart from like a couple of people, have gone to Old World. But they're like in
Yeah,
their 40s, so they remember it fondly.
yeah. Yeah, that is the demographic, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but 40k, the second people stop going and playing 40k, GW goes into goddamn panic mode,
Yeah.
because that's the one that makes the money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that they see that and they've noticed that. So this is going to tie into my little conspiracy theory. So for those of you who don't know, Warhammer Age of Sigmar 4th edition is coming out because Games Workshop did something that I did not see them ever doing recently, which is make a good decision for Age of Sigmar. I don't know if you saw the modular rules thing that they mentioned, but I really think that's interesting.
Technically, they have had that for basically every rule set, where it's here's your basic rules, and then your advanced rules are things like terrain, stratagems, and command points. That's all the way that 40k has been.
You're definitely right on that, but I do like the fact that they're making the division of that. I like the fact that they're mentioning that there is a divide between the two sections of it, and if they make it like two rule books, first rule set is the core rules, which covers how to use magic, shooting, movement, and how to play the game in its base, and then there's the second
The advanced
where
rules.
The advanced rules that cover the terrain,
Commands,
magic,
terrain,
cover. Yeah, exactly.
army composition, battle tactics, and things like that. That's also where the magic is, apparently, not in the core rules.
Yeah. I'm fine with that because it's going to be the best of both worlds where you can play with all of the rules if you want. And I think that's a really good idea to give to show GW that absolutely nobody who plays the game regularly gives a single shit about having a fast game. Maybe I'm overspeaking, who knows? But I think that them dividing it between two rule books that I think could be smaller is actually a better idea than just having a dumbed down rule set for everybody. And I think that if this takes off and people like this and people show interest in this, they might somewhere down the line publish a secondary compendium. So say like, oh God, what's the one for the little booklet that they used to give out? I don't know if they do that anymore. It's been a
Chapter
minute.
approved?
Chapter approved. Yeah, they put out like a chapter approved that's like, here's all the rules for all the factions that you could have been using. So they'll bring back like psychic lores, they'll bring back a bunch of other stuff. Now, that is a pipe dream. I am actually a raving lunatic, and this is not going to happen because GW is notorious for not giving people the things they want. But would be really cool if they did that at some point to add a little bit more complexity to the game, especially if Age of Sigmar picks up with that specific rule set.
Optional complexity as well.
Exactly. So they can continue playing on the competitive end with the speedier rule set, and they can continue to play with like the casual rule set on the like casual and smaller scale end of things. But for people like me who are like, man, psychers just suck right now because they're literally they just got a special plasma pistol and maybe an additional rule, and that's it.
Oh, Gene
Um,
Stealer Cult Magos doesn't even get the special lightning attack. It's just
what?
a special. No, there's no offensive shooting. Nothing at all. Gene Stealer Cult Patriarch's the same. Claws only.
I mean, it makes sense because like they were never like lightning casting Jedi wizards. They were just like mind warping. I
I
control
mean, the
you
Gene
for a
Stealer
turn.
Cult Magos, the earliest art of it is casting lightning that goes through Terminators.
Oh, valid, but also I hurt for you. I bleed for you. This sucks.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's sort of the issue with like the Stillman approach. I like it. You get your army and it's great. But if I put more than one unit of Metamorphs or the Magos on the table for Gene Stealer Cult, it just feels like I'm deliberately taking a handicap. It's maybe a little
mm,
bit of fun, but it loses the fun aspect when you're like, oh, I could have done exactly the same thing with Acolytes and it would have been fine, or a Primus and it'd be fine. Battle Sisters are doing
mm.
better. All the units are good in some way. But casual World Eater players are not having fun right now unless they skew towards Angron because of the points. I have tried it
Yeah.
before where you can like balance it with friends. So I had my Deathwatch army as I was building it up, and it was,
Mhm.
really bad in the meta. So they gave me an extra 100 points. So it's like, okay, I've got
Ooh.
1,600 points of their 1,500 points of Black Templars, which were the opposite end of the meta. I did win, but it felt like a bit of a cheat. Like I'd gotten a bonus
Nah,
I shouldn't have had.
nah, I get it. Yeah, competitive play is always going to be a bit of a rocky thing to balance, though it's why I don't think I'll play competitive until I have at least 200 Kroot models that I can just throw on the table. And I mean, I'm going to go with the old-fashioned orc philosophy. Like, sure, you have a 2-up save, but you got 40 saves to make, and your model has like 5 wounds. I don't care. He dies. Um,
Yeah,
because,
statistically, yes, it should.
but those are also one of the more fun battles because I've had
Yeah, or you can
models
just
that have
put that on
gone.
the table and people will be like, this is cool. That's a great
Oh yeah.
army.
Oh yeah. And also, if you survive that, that's a story to tell. I like
hmm
stories to tell. Um,
I
so
had a similar thing where a Custodes player, rather than playing the current Custodes meta, was like, I'm going to stick a Titan in it. And I was like, I don't care about winning the game anymore. I'm going to take down the Titan.
I wanted to be a dick once and run Custodes, but I wasn't gonna run Custodes. It was only gonna be Sisters of Silence. Oh, I wanted to. I wanted to so bad, but I just realized it's like it's not worth it because I think even by my standards, and I play Leagues of Votan, I'm picking up Kroot. I'm used to armies that have like 9 options, but like
And four of them are
Sisters.
characters.
Yeah, exactly. But with like Sisters of Silence, they have 3 options, I think,
Three
and all
infantry
of
and one character model.
yeah, and technically a rhino. But
Yes.
but yeah, I wanted to because it'd be so funny to bring those, but like it wouldn't work. I mean, it'd be really annoying for anybody who's running like I don't know, Thousand
Thousand
Suns.
Suns.
That'd be so goddamn funny. And I'm very rarely the type of guy to pass up on a good meme.
It's a
But
lot of commitment to a meme, all the models to paint and build and buy.
oh, I'm buying Kroot, and I'm only playing Kroot. I'm not putting a single town model in there. I'm committed to the meme, but it's also because I just want to say I'm running an entire army of berserking chickens. That's it.
That's great. I mean, you could do like a chicken run theme and have them all fight. If you wanted to get a flyer, if there's a, have them a Tau flyer and just have it like the flyer at the end of the chicken run film.
Who knows? I might do something like that, but I might do something weirder. I'm planning on just running Horde because I don't have a Horde army. That's the last thing on my Warhammer bucket list that I can't like
Mm.
that I don't have. I had ghouls at one point, and then I realized I don't want to play ghouls, so I just sold them. That's something I do, and that's something that's kind of a rite of passage.
What, realizing you don't like an army?
Yeah, after buying over $1,000 worth of them, and then being like, okay, I'm gonna sell it. And
Ah,
then you
see,
do.
that's why I buy slowly, and then I have never sold any of my armies.
So, okay, this is a funny story. I again, ADHD, hell of a drug.
Hmm.
I was working a job at the time that was actually paying pretty handsomely. I was working at a call center for a moving company. I was like tech support, but I was also like a guy who would organize specific moves. One of the worst jobs I've ever had in my entire life, but god damn it paid well.
Hmm.
So, and during the Christmas season, no one was moving, so I just had like 8-hour stretches where I'd get 3 calls. So I'd just be sitting at my desk. So I was like, you know what? I'm picking up a Horde faction. So I'd pick up the Horde faction of ghouls because ghouls are like $60 for 20 models. That really good.
If you buy them through Kings of War, they're even cheaper. It's very similar models.
It's fine. It's fine. I understand. I'm a
Yes.
GW still. I'm an idiot. I get it. I
Hmm.
have a recaster for Forge World models for a reason. Or I can't say Forge World models anymore. Expert
The
kits.
15 plus range.
Yeah.
The no,
So
little Timmy, you're not allowed behind this curtain.
yeah, no, you can't. Uh, but uh,
So you painted
basically,
for the horde of models while not taking any calls.
yeah, exactly. I just sit there with like my little paint palette, which is an old cutting board, and I just be sitting there badge painting like ghouls over and over and over again. And I think I ended up with like over 100 ghouls because I was there for like about 2 years, and I'd get one box of ghouls every paycheck because that would last me until next paycheck with like maybe a few days of wiggle room in between. And after about like 8 to 10 months, I had over 200 ghouls painted, based, and like perfectly done. Like my battle standard like for like painting is like slightly higher than what the average battle standard is, but I peak. That's as far as it goes. It's just slightly better than what everybody would expect for a batch painted miniature.
Hmm.
Um, so I just have so many miniatures on the table, and then I'd be like, well, I have 200 ghouls, no character models.
Paint up a ghoul as a courtier, that'd work.
Oh yeah, no worries. I started to do that after like box number 10, but I ended up realizing that I was like, man, I don't really want to play these, and then I sold them. But then, literally a month later, the Ghoul update came out, and I have
Mm.
several more holes in my drywall because of it. That's also a good segue into another competitive thing, because that's the topic of the day, if you don't know.
Hmm. Hmm.
The topic of chasing the meta. So, what's your
Yes.
standard? What's your opinion on that? Like, not chasing the meta, but buying miniatures that you hear are good and you know are good. Do you think that is a good or a bad?
Meta chasing, you have to do it, everyone's going to do it to some degree.
Mm.
Because you're going to get the models that you don't like. You're like, oh, I've got these. They're not playing great on the tabletop. I'm not enjoying using them. I'm going to get something else. So people will be meta chasers to some extent. Although, if you're not really into meta chasing, then as soon as the balance patch comes out, you can get a lot of secondhand models really cheaply.
Oh God, yeah. Oh man, you have no idea how. Oh, maybe you do. You probably do more than most, but like that is such a fun time.
Yeah, I can only afford to buy things like either secondhand or discounted or cheaper stuff.
Oh yeah, no, same here. Well, I say that like I'm not buying the Kroot box tomorrow from my local store. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that chasing the competitive meta, it's not inherently black or white or good or bad. It
There's
is just
degrees.
yeah, it's a nuanced thing.
It's like Stillman doing a little bit, changing your army every 3 months.
If you're doing it so much that it feels like it's a damn arms race, then like you're probably doing it wrong unless everybody else is doing that.
That's going to be awkward if you're like a Custodes player, because you would have them
Yeah.
for like the end of 9th edition. Start of 10th edition, it's September. These are rubbish now because the true rules change in the balance patch. You get rid of them. Come the January balance patch, you're like, oh no, they're amazing again. I need to get them back.
I love that. I knew so many people who went into the jet bike part of that, and they're just like, "Man, I have like 30 jet bikes right now." And then it happened, and then I went on eBay, and it's like, "Oh, I'm selling a lot of 9 jet bikes." I'm like, "Oh, I know what you are."
Yeah. Good times, good times. Oh, I did also have a thing where I beat someone who was playing Dark Eldar in like October, and then they were gonna sell them, but then they just put them on the shelf and took them down off eBay just after the Sky Splinter detachment was announced. They're like, oh, forget them, forget them. I'm not selling them anymore. They're good.
Yeah, I think trying to play it like it's an arms race, and you have to like get the best miniatures to stay as competitive as possible.
Badly paint them. Yeah, just airbrush and then like a face.
If your bread and butter is actually like playing competitive 40K, like I'm talking like top of your game tournament level, you
Yep.
get the pass. I think you get the pass for that because like you gotta, right?
Ooh, I don't know. I think the people that do the best, even when it's like off meta for them, are the people that are committed to one army. So there'll be a couple of really good Gene Stealer Cult players who will play Gene Stealer Cult like all of the time. And they can still win tournaments even when it's not the meta thing. And I'm like, that person, they are the good player because they can win even when it's bad.
Yeah, no, you got a point there. Though I do say there is a bit of a pass that happens there, and that's coming from someone who, towards the end of ninth, when I actually started to play like, okay, I started to play Crusade, and I was going up against a bunch of people that
It's fun.
were like, oh, it's so good. I played Black Templars, and then I played Leagues of Votan. Leagues of Votan and Crusade are so goddamn fun. Like everybody else is like, I must conquer this world, and like for Leagues of Votan, it's like, oh, I gotta manage the stock market today. Like it's
I,
so good. It's
I
so
need my
good.
shipping rights. Yes.
It's like, oh man, I gotta start. I showed up on this planet today. We got a few natural resources. By the end of this month, we're gonna be fracking for oil. Like,
Rock
oh
and
man, it's so
stone.
fun, right? I love it. But Black Templars, I was playing them how I wanted to play, but I looked up how people play Black Templars because I was like, man, I am losing every single game. And as much as normally, I really don't.
Yeah, it feels a bit more
Um,
awkward in Crusade when it's like, oh, this unit died forever because I played badly.
Yeah, it felt bad because I was playing the faction wrong. Okay, I read Hell's Reach and immediately bought a box of Primaris Crusaders. Sue me. So looked it up and I was like, oh my god, there's so many things that I didn't know I could do. So it's like you're doing devout push every single goddamn turn. I put a character within 3 inches of every single model, and after that, I was a goddamn menace. I was the most annoying player to go against because man, the Black Templars had such weird shenanigans in ninth edition. Like there's a stratagem in ninth for Black Templars specifically that like if you are going to attack a unit, you have to attack the character that is within 3 inches of that unit rather than that. So I was just like,
Battle Sisters had a similar thing where it's like anything, suffering and sacrifice, which we now have as a thing but in 10th edition, but it's now any unit rather than characters. So we're doing the same shenanigan just with like 2 Crusaders.
yeah, it's so fun. It's so fun. I think that it is important to know the balance between competitive play and when you're just ruining the fun for everybody else. So that's why I say there's a lot of nuance to determining if chasing the meta is a good thing or not. Because at the end of the day, that's all it is. I know there's a lot of people that focus on, in my community, I've had like a lot of people that are like, yeah, this specific army is winning. They're winning with this. They're winning with this
Mm-hmm.
specific,
Yep.
whatever, and then they show up to tournaments and then they lose because another thing that people forget is that local meta is different from competitive meta.
I know, right? I mean, we were just talking about what were we just talking about? one of the factions we talked about different things. When I was talking to a totally different guy, Proxy Hammer, I was like, oh yeah, I know the Eldar meta. It's loads of Wraith Guard and Wraith Lords. And he's like, what? No, it's all jet bikes. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, no, it's very interesting. It's why like that tournament that I brought a bunch of great unclean ones to. I did that specifically to prove a point that local meta is different. And the funnest part about that is everybody was bringing meta models, but because no one in the top level of play has to worry about like the unga bunga ape brain of I
Yeah.
have 80 wounds of toughness 8
And when
and
you're in a 20-player tournament, it's a bit different.
oh 20 players, god no, it was 10.
Oh, right. So
I
5 tables.
Yeah, 5 tables. It was we were it's a small community, but no one knew what to do. Like they couldn't get through. The only reason why the other guy won and I came in second is because he brought Melta Spam, which okay, I get it. And I was fine with that because he had something for me. And it wasn't just regular Melta Spam, it was Invader ATV with like a bunch of bike spam that had like Meltas on them so like they could outmaneuver me and they could outshoot me. That was perfectly fine. He had the exact list that would just burn me to death. And that's fine, but no one else knew how to beat me. I remember I was going up against a guy who was like, logically, I could beat you. And I'm like, yeah, you say that. Like, statistically, you totally probably could. But then we got through turn 1, and he had only half health to one of the great unclean ones. And I'm like, okay, you're not going to kill them. You just can't chew through that many wounds. That circles back around to the main point of this entire thing is meta sucks. Meta is
Yeah.
evil, and it is ruining casual play because people think that that is the way to go about it. Stop me if you've heard this one, because I'm going to make my overarching point here.
Okay, you make your point, and then I'll go to the hill that I'm going to die on. Carry on.
Okay, so the way that I see meta is, I forgot who said this, but they were talking about a game, and I completely agree with them. The meta and the idea of a competitively better or just a functionally better version to play the army is like a Cthulhian eldritch text from an H.P. Lovecraft book. Once you're aware that it exists and you have read what it is,
Hmm.
you feel completely wrong doing anything else. Because the
Yeah.
human brain is wired to feel that Occam's razor is the right way to go. So going the simplest way is usually the best way. So once you know that like you are doing things the wrong way in comparison to what would win the most, it makes it difficult for a lot of people to try and do it other ways. It feels like they're just unintentionally nerfing themselves or playing horribly without knowing it. And I feel like that's unfortunate. I feel like it's honestly
The
bad.
internet has ruined us all.
Yeah,
You didn't get this in third edition. You can just like ask some people, but now you go online and like, oh, there's a vampire telling you the best units and how to use each one, and here's the meta list for the new Sisters of Battle. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that because of that specific thing, because you have to read the book, the Necronomicon, your brain can never be the same afterwards. And
Yep.
for a lot of people, they can't ignore that. They genuinely can't. For me, I don't care. I got that out of my brain once I got beaten half to death by an Imperial Guard army in ninth edition. So I just don't care if I win anymore per se, but because of that, it makes it difficult for other people to play any other way, and because it makes it difficult for people to play any other way. That is weirdly hard to say,
Yeah, difficult for people to play any other way. Yeah.
right? But then you have GW who sees people who only read from the dark book that James keeps in his little
Yeah, the one
little
that they keep
closet,
even pushing on their website
right?
because they're like, hey, here's this meta list. Oh,
Yeah,
this did well at the tournament. We have this new event where they're advertising our stuff. Yeah. Yeah, they're
yeah.
pushing it. They're like,
The meta
read
watch is
it.
rough.
Read it.
Yeah, the meta watch is also really rough because like I think it's fun if you have the right mentality, but it is so not fun when you don't.
hmm
Because if you are like,
Ah, the two kinds of commenters I get.
yeah, if you're like me and my buddy Breton, we look at it and we see that it's like, oh, Iron Jaws and Sylvaneth, that's awesome. We high five each other and we're like apes together, strong, as we're like, yeah, it's great. But then there's like the other people who are like, oh man, Cities of Sigmar are winning a lot. What are they doing? And then they look
Yeah.
up like why they're winning, and they're like, man, maybe I should play Cities of Sigmar, and that's how you get these kind
See,
of meta chasing things.
similarly, when the Gene Stealer cult tumbled down the rankings, I was like, good. Finally, people will play against me. It'll be nice.
Yeah, I love when 10th edition came out and we had the Eldar versus Eldar meta. That was pretty fun to
Yeah.
see.
They win 67% of the games, and the 1/3 loss is against other Eldar players.
Right? Oh man. I think the highest win rate I've ever seen was when Leagues of Votann came out in ninth,
Yep.
and they were just doing wacky nonsense. They did not learn from the Tau railgun that railguns are cool and they're fun, but don't make the wounds spill over. It'll just ruin the whole
Mm,
system. And I get it. It was because if you rolled a 6, you got the railgun spill over, but also you got it on a 4 or 5 too if you got too many grudge tokens on a guy. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they never learn. They
It was
never
just
learn.
Cream Beam.
Oh yeah. But yeah, you said you had a hill you wanted to die on?
Oh, yes. So if we're talking like you just play the models that's fun, not the meta ones, how do you feel about Legends? Hello and welcome to the hill I am dying on.
See, Legends never bothers me in the slightest, but that's just because I'm like the stupid ultra casual, but
Good. I am the same because I think if you've bought a model, you should be able to use your model. Like, get your Space Marine attack bikes out and your scout snipers and all of them.
oh no, I think Legends is awesome. I don't even acknowledge that it exists. I just say that those are models that I can play.
Oh, good. So it's not like a separate rule set for you.
No, it's not. Like literally, I don't play tournaments, so it's never ever functionally ever
See,
going to come
this
up
is
for
the
me.
thing I keep trying to like hammer into people's heads. Legend units can be used in everything except the grand tournaments, and they can be used in tournaments if like the tournament organizer of the local thing says yes, it's fine. They've done like narrative events where they encourage Legends units, but so many people have had to have like, oh, someone unwillingly played against them because they had Legends, or refused to play against them because they had Legends, even though they can be played everywhere except tournaments. That is the official Games Workshop line that they keep coming back to. And even then, tournament organizers can be like, it's fine, so play your Legends units. You bought the model. There are rules for the model in this edition. Even things like data sheets that have been replaced, like the new Terminator Captain, can have a fist or a sword, and a combi bolter or a storm bolter. But there's also the index rules where you can have twin lightning claws. I consider that a Legends data sheet. It was valid at the start of 10th edition. This edition's rules. Other armies haven't shifted that much. If it's valid to slice apart a Drukhari at the start of the edition, why is it suddenly not now? So don't like pull the arms off and try and make something else out of him. Just use him. The Space Marine Captain, he can have a combi bolter at the start of the edition. The Marshal, the Black Templars Marshal, is a captain profile with a captain rule and can have a combi bolter, so we're clearly not breaking the game by including a regular Space Marine Captain with a combi melter. Just use your models.
I completely agree, understand, and I feel the same way. But also, make up your own rules. Is James Workshop going to come and hurt you if you're just like, yeah, no, Death Guard, they have a feel no pain. I don't care. I've done that. Like I when I was teaching people how to play 40K, I didn't even tell them, which is going to be really funny later if they decide to pick up the game. That I was like, yeah, no, all my Death Guard models, these I put like an extra like 2 points on each model, of course. But I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, no, 5 up, feel no pain across the board. Does it matter? No, it's literally just the boys in a basement playing, rolling dice and moving toys around a board. Who
And having the
cares?
fun times. As long as you are having the fun times, it's great.
Yeah, no, I think that people who make a distinction between like legends and like whatever, and they're just like, again, it's like the Eldritch Tome analogy that I said. It's like I can't play those; you can't use in competitively viable matches, and I'm like, but you can unless you're in a competitively viable match.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I get it. Are you training for like a GT? Cool, that's cool, great for you. I'm not.
You need to play against my Legends list because then you need to be prepared for anything, not just Eldar Fire Prism spam or Custodes that teleport all over the board with golden light.
Yeah, so I'm bringing like the Ironclad Dreadnought. I'm bringing 3 of them because I hate life and I hate you specifically, and you get the drill.
You and your walls.
Yeah. No, I honestly don't care. I think like people who make the distinction are. No, I'm not gonna say that. I don't want to be mean. I'm too mean on like any kind of guest appearance I do on anyone else's channel.
But I brought you on to be mean to the people, so it's not the words coming out of my mouth.
And okay, screw it. Yeah, no, I think if you make the distinction that you can never use legends and you denigrate others because they use it, and you prevent other people from having fun, I genuinely think you're just a loser who just is allergic to fun. Like,
Oh, that was a lot milder than I was expecting. That is literally my
I'm not.
opinion that I
Oh, I'm not
represent
done.
before.
Don't
All
worry.
right, okay, okay.
Oh, I'm not done.
All right, okay.
Yeah, I think that like if you denigrate anyone for how they play the game, you just suck. Like I know it's maybe it is a little bit more milk toast than you're expecting, but honestly, I just want to be able to play whatever I want. If I want to make up rules and everybody at the table is okay to do so, then like go for it.
Yeah.
Um, I've had like so many awkward interactions where people get like super upset over it. Oh man, this is a funny story from my local community. I don't know if you allow those. I'm not gonna give names or anything, but this is
Yeah.
the one time I wish I went to a 9th edition tournament, and it's because I had Sisters of Battle once, and I had to sell them
Ooh.
because I got super frustrated about how they gave the Sisters of Battle release box, you know, when they did the remake.
Yeah.
That is unironically the worst box they have ever released in history. I will
You
fight
know,
anybody.
I think it is probably as well. It's a lot of horrible monopose models. They don't quite fit right. And then they made a combat patrol out of it, and people are like, oh, the combat patrol's good. I'm like, it's not, please. Maybe the new one will be better. Which is going to be like the one time it happens.
Like like you're losing out a little bit. Like they give you one penitent engine, they come in boxes of 2. They give you
Ah,
4
right.
what do you
3
call them?
Arco-flagellants, but they're usually in 10s,
They
but you
come
can now take them in 3s, but only because they're in
Yeah.
this one set.
Yeah, and my favorite one is that the Canoness that came with that box was not legal upon
Yeah, you
production
can't
because you
field this
couldn't have
model as it's shown with
Yeah.
the power pistol and
Yeah.
the rod. The Canoness is still a mess as a profile. Like, oh, you can have this thing, but you can't have that. Oh, you can have this left arm, but you can't have that right arm. No, what are you doing?
Yeah. So I sold a lot of those models off. I see Warhammer for like the entirety of it. I like the lore, I like the gameplay, and I like the hobby aspect
The
of it. And
friendly interactions.
yeah, but I like the painting. Painting is my main hobby.
All right.
So because of that, it ends with me having like the rankings being like the lore, obviously, everything else, then actually playing the game. So gameplay never really matters to me. So if I get a lot of satisfaction over getting the models and then selling them, then that's perfectly valid, I would just think.
Okay.
So sold off about 2,000 points worth of Sisters of Battle when I realized that I just didn't really care about the models. I think that the fact that I'm gonna have to buy at least 10 more boxes of like Battle Sisters, like the regular ones, to play the game properly, I don't like that because that's an overly expensive model, but I digress.
Yeah, they've become
Um,
a horde, and I don't like that.
so I accidentally sold all those models to a literal like sewer dwelling crazy person whom was like, I don't know. He had more in line with a gorilla than he did a human being. He sucked as a person. Like, he's the most ape brain savage of a human being I've ever met in my life. And I wish I could interact with him more because of how crazy he was. And I didn't know until way later because he bought my miniatures. Cool. That's fine. As long as you treat them well, whatever. He didn't, but whatever.
They didn't go in a jar or something, did they?
No. I found out about years later. There was a tournament that he went to, and I was like, cool. Good old, I'll say his name's Ted. His name's not Ted. Name's not even like Ted, but Ted went to a tournament.
Ted's taking a
Yes,
tournament tour.
yeah. So Ted tried to top a tournament, and he went there. And again, the guy who's like the best Warhammer player on my island showed up. And again, he played guard. This was the day after the guard codex came out. He was allowed to play it because again, local community. There was like
Yeah.
8 people who showed up. So Ted won his first round by slow playing. Like they got to the middle of round 2, because he only knew the game a little bit and he was getting rules wrong, and because of that, he would win. And got to the second round of the tournament, and he went up against the guy who was like the competitive player. And the competitive player, God bless him, lovely guy. Like I talk like he was talking down to me, but like once I got to know him, he's like one of the nicest people I've ever met. Really,
He
really
was
nice
just
guy.
very aware that you were new. He didn't mean to like cripple you
I
and kick you and say you were weak.
But I wasn't new. This was in 9th edition. I've been playing since 7th.
Well, you've been going since 7th edition. I mean, it's not what my viewers are used to, but it'll be good. You hadn't played 9th edition. You were new to that edition.
It was also the second game I played with Leagues of Votan.
So, yeah,
So,
in a lot of ways you were new.
okay, so.
No one's doubting that you know all the lore.
Yeah, I know. I'm not that self-conscious about it. I just think it was really funny.
And you've carried that wound and mentioned it several times.
Oh yeah, no. Again, I'm a dwarf guy. I keep my grudges.
So Ted's fighting big guy.
So Ted's fighting big guy, lovely guy. Ted's not. And it just ends with blowing his entire army off the table turn 1 because the guy didn't actually know how to play the game competitively. He just slow played and whatever. And Ted lost his goddamn mind. Apparently, he started screaming at the tournament organizer. How did you, by the way, this is just the guy who owns the shop. We love this guy. He's a bit of a grumpy curmudgeon, but he's like a friendly guy. He's a nice guy. I get along with him great, and I consider him a friend. And he just was like, why did you allow him to use the codex? It's brand new. You shouldn't allow that stuff to play. And I'm like, dog, you still would have lost. And apparently everybody who tried to jump in immediately started getting the business too. Like, he started yelling at them, and I wish I was there because that would have been so funny to watch. Just losing your mind because you lost at a game where you have to move tiny plastic men and women is so stupid, especially at a local tournament where I think the prize was $20 Canadian, which is like 5 cents American.
I was going to put that into like UK money, but it's not bad. You know, it's the bus ride there and back.
And that kind of goes back to what it's like to bad meta chase. Codex creep is another thing that's really funny to talk about.
It's not been too bad this edition. They've just
with the 2 codexes we've gotten so far.
Well, I mean, Tyranids sort of went down in power. Space Marines, actually, I think other than the Necrons, all of the factions that have got codexes have been reduced in ability. Admech's gone down and they weren't particularly high up. Tyranids are considered one of the worst. Space Marines of all kinds, apart from Black Templars, are down.
Deus Vault Brothers.
Yeah.
I say that like I only play Black Templars. Yeah, I've sold off so many factions, but yet I have 3 to 4 different sub-factions of Space Marines.
Can't escape the Space Marines.
Yeah, I got the Raptors, Black Templars, and Minotaurs.
Oh, good. I'm doing oh no, it's not actual Minotaurs, it's Prison Minotaurs as one of my Death Watch.
Yeah, those are the weird ones that have the goofy looking cow skull.
It's fine. It's a weird cow, but the
regular they're great. I think they're fantastic.
It looks like an ordinary cow, I think. I think the Minotaurs are the ones that have the actual weird cow skull.
No, I was thinking of the original Minotaur's cow skull.
Oh, that one, yes.
The old Hammer one with the mustard and ketchup paint scheme that's impossible to do. The old Badab War paint schemes are all absolutely crispy nonsense.
Your armor doesn't look like a hot dog with mustard and ketchup on it.
Oh, yeah, no. The old Badab War stuff is really cool. The old Carcharodon's logo is always the worst, too.
That's, Street Sharks.
Half shark, half man, fighting evil, that's the plan. Street Sharks.
Yeah. I love it so much. Of course.
I have an idea, a suggestion of how to not have a mismatch between like casual and competitive, assuming you know what you're doing. So if you're like agreeing to meet up and play with someone, as many people do, there's like local club discords and things where you say, hey, I'm going to be down, who wants to play this game? You chat about the kind of game you want, then you can figure out the kind of list you're going to take. And it's all going to be good. You know that you're going to have a friendly 1,500 point game. If you're going to a club and it's like a random pickup game against whoever's there, it's like, oh yeah, everyone turned up at 7 p.m, pair up. Then I would make 2 lists. One is a casual list and one is the more meta-y, if you want, if you have the models. Then you can have great competitive fun as long as you both know that you're going to do that, and you find the one person eventually that has the same skill level as you, and you end up playing them again and again and having close games every time. That's what you really want, that one regular person you play against.
Of course. No, it definitely works out. I'm a fan. I'm always going to be a hyper casual. I always have been.
Yes.
Okay, it's not the best because like if you enjoy the concept of winning so much that you have to play, then I get it, right? I get it. Um, but it just play within your boundaries, play with what works for you as a person, and if it doesn't work, then don't do it. Don't feel like you have to be pressured to play a specific way because that's kind of one of the main concerns. I think that's kind of the main topic, or at least the subtext of the topic that we're
Yeah, if newer
discussing.
people only see the competitive side, they feel they can get excluded until they get good. Or
Yeah, right.
they didn't know there's a whole other fun part of the game. So the video that I'll be showing next for people, why you should play 1,000 points, not 2,000 point games, because they're more fun. And that is a whole story why I end up at a nightclub, but I don't end up going to the right kind of club that I thought.
Yeah, hard relate. Side note, I'm actually running my own tournament, 1,000 points.
And that is a good choice. And it's got some extra rules. What were the extra rules for it? It was things like set secondaries, no single models over 200 points.
Yep, no single models over 200 points though. I was going to say there's one exception, which is armigers and warhounds, but like,
Ah,
God, I
the
hate
Chaos Knight
even.
meta.
I cannot even mention that. I can't, because there's gonna be one guy. Because I looked it up. Armigers and warhounds are 160 points. I couldn't even mention that rule because it doesn't even apply. So I'm just sitting here, like. If someone brings 9 armigers, I'm going to throw a fit. I'm going to legit be upset because that is like I made in the little post that I made in our little group chat of like, hey, this is a hyper casual tournament. Please be respectful. You're allowed to bring whatever you want, but please be respectful. And I know there's going to be some people who don't. I know that some people are going to see it as like an easy win, which is why
Yep,
there's
I
no
was going to
cash
say,
prize.
an easy win for me.
Yeah, there's gonna be no cash prize,
Good.
right?
See, we usually do like, oh, we have like 3 single models and a wooden spoon. And for the last game of like the final game for the bottom table, they're like, come on, I bet I can lose harder than you.
Yeah, we also have the shop is also contributing a prize, which I call it the Arthur Bones Award, because
Does
it's
anyone
the
else
only.
call it that?
No, it's the Arthur Bones Award specifically for me because it actually gives me a reason to actually win the
Ah,
games.
I see.
Because it's a limited edition anniversary model that's like over $100 to buy right now.
Ah, is it the Katachan lady?
No, the other
Is it the
one.
Katachan guy with the big fist?
Oh yeah. Catechin is the only like Imperial Guard regiment that I would play. I'm just never going to play them because their models look absolutely dog water. They're bad.
Yeah, don't have the faces. Don't look at the faces. It's not a good
Yeah.
choice.
But if I get this colonel, it would be an excuse to get into Catechin if they ever did that. And I know I'm saying Catechin, and that is probably triggering some neurons to
Katachan,
fire.
Katachan!
I I don't care. I don't care. I say Satan. I don't. People get after me for that one too. I don't care. I'll say it that way because it
Kaitan!
sounds cooler.
Kitten!
No,
It's a kitten!
no, no. I hate saying Catan because that's a board game, and
Ah,
Satan
yes,
sounds cooler.
the settlers of the Necron planet.
Yeah, exactly. But I digress. So yeah, casual tournaments usually good, and it's I once I do that, I might actually make a video about how to organize your own tournament because that'll be funny. Like I have so much experience.
Well, it could be like, here's this, or, the first time I did it, and then advice for that, because that'll probably go better. A lot of
Yeah.
people like my noob attempt to do this, my first go round with it, can be pretty good. People like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to do an outro? Like, mention your channel, where people can find you?
Nah, everybody just subscribe to this channel, especially if you're a fan of mine. Hi, I'm Arthur Bones. If you want to find me, I'm Mr. Bones 40K. I cover whatever I think about. So, like, if you think that sounds cool, then go come find me. Man, I'm terrible at selling myself, but regardless, I just talk about whatever I can think of. It could be the tabletop, it could be like announcements, it could be lore. It's mostly lore, but you know what? We can cut it there.
Yeah. And everyone have a great day casually playing 40k.